Welcome to a KSL 5 News Special Edition, examining your life, your health.
Welcome to this Your Life, Your Health special, Navigating Reentry. Tonight we're exploring how you and your family can adjust to life after COVID-19.
While some Utahns are still unsure about the vaccine, others, even after the shot, feel anxious about returning to work or attending social events. As we all prepare to slowly move into a post-pandemic world, there are a lot of questions. A
recent poll by the Deseret News and the University of Utah's Hinckley Institute of Politics asked Utahns, how long do you think it will be before life is back to normal? 25% of Utahns believe it will only take 3 to 6 months from now. 21% say it will take until winter. And another 36% say it will take at least a year or more before life returns as we once knew it. Once the pandemic's over, most Utahns, 61%, say they don't plan to wear masks, even to prevent the transmission of other diseases, while just 36% said they were very or somewhat likely to wear a mask post-pandemic.
Aside from these polls, Intermountain Healthcare infectious disease expert Dr. Brandon Webb says the trends are looking favorable, with a steady decline in the 7-day rolling average for positive cases. He attributes this to higher vaccination rates and taking a slow approach to relaxing precautions.
But we'd really like to drive that down even lower, because there are still people who are getting COVID, or we still have patients in the hospital who are critically ill, and we still have deaths due to COVID.
Nearly 57% of the state's population has now received at least a first dose of the vaccine, and 46.5% are fully vaccinated. Webb says the new CDC guidelines allowing fully vaccinated individuals to go unmasked has created a gray transition period.
And what that essentially has created in our community is sort of this patchwork quilt of mask wearing, not mask wearing.
He urges us to be mindful of those still choosing to wear a mask.
It's critical that we're respectful of those personal, individual decisions, because who are we to judge whether somebody's wearing a mask simply because they feel more comfortable or because they really do need that extra layer of protection.
He also says fully vaccinated individuals with compromised immune systems still have reason to be cautious.
That was Dave McCann. Right now, Utah is leading the nation in the 12 to 15-year-old vaccination rate, with about 9% of that age group having had at least one shot. Pediatrician Dr. Donna Barhor says with more than 13,000 kids hospitalized nationwide with the virus, this is a big milestone.
That population of kiddos, even though they may have a milder disease, can transmit it to other folks, but also there are very severe complications that COVID-19 can cause in our younger patients.
Now, this is new. The CDC says you no longer need to space out the COVID vaccine 14 days apart from other vaccinations. Barhor says this will make it easier for junior high and high school students to stay up to date on vaccinations ahead of the new school year. She urges parents, don't delay taking your kids in for their well-child doctor visits this summer.
Considering the mental and emotional toll the pandemic is having, it's only natural to feel apprehensive about getting back to normal. And some will need more time than others. News specialist Heather Simonson spoke with a doctor who says taking these steps will make getting back a little easier.
Though Elizabeth Soria doesn't speak English, she's fluent in the worries of mothers.
She fears, I would get it.
Afraid her daughter, Arleth, a senior at Granger High School, will get coronavirus.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult, not knowing what people have with vaccination.
Elizabeth had a bad case of coronavirus and couldn't work. She lost her job cleaning office buildings.
And she hasn't found one yet. And it's kind of difficult to pay the bills and, the rent and stuff.
They face very real health and economic concerns. Latinos make up 14% of Utah's population, but had the highest COVID-19 case counts among underrepresented groups, over 20%.
We don't want to see our families get ill and, probably lose them, because that's really hard to go through.
Because of all that worry and anxiety, Dr. Travis Mickelson, a psychiatrist, says reentry may be emotionally challenging for many.
And it might even bring up some of that grief that they have been dealing with over this last year.
Arleth, a wrestler, knows COVID loss firsthand.
My coach's mom passed away, and she was really close to me.
Mickelson says as restrictions lift, heart-pounding anxiety is normal, but we can work through it.
Sometimes that fight or flight response gets triggered when it doesn't need to. That's when it's good to remind ourselves of the things we can control that protect us, like wearing a mask or getting vaccinated.
If I'm wanting to return to social situations and I'm nervous about doing that in person, I don't have to jump back into that suddenly. Maybe we can take a baby step.
Mickelson says talking to kids about their feelings helps.
I notice that you seem kind of tense or kind of nervous right now. Tell me what you're feeling. And getting that child to be able to describe the words and the language to describe how they're feeling, and then be able to really validate that.
He says as a community, we should speak the language of kindness.
That's why I think it's really important that we really have compassion for people around us, because we just don't know. We just don't know what other people have experienced.
The future looks bright for YLYH.
I'm going to Washington Big Bend Community College to wrestle, so that's really exciting.
It's just going to take some time to ease back into interrupted routines. For Your Life, Your Health, Heather Simonson, KSL 5 News.
Heather, thank you. If you're nervous about returning to normal life post-pandemic, you're not alone. A recent survey from the American Psychological Association shows nearly 50% of Americans feel anxious about resuming in-person interactions, even if they're fully vaccinated.
Psychologists have dubbed this the re-entry anxiety. And they say it's normal to feel this way. Consider these tips. First, gradually reintroduce activities. Remember, it's still okay to say no once in a while. Make a bucket list of things you look forward to doing again, whether it's going to a restaurant, a concert, or taking a vacation. Accept that your friendships with others may have changed during the pandemic, and look for opportunities to serve them. Last, reach out for professional help from a mental health expert if you are really struggling.
Don't do one of those arm grabs while you're shaking their hand, and don't do the cover-up.
Coming up, to shake or not to shake hands post-pandemic. Brush up on your social skills with an expert. But first, what's the best approach to talk to someone who's hesitant about getting the COVID-19 vaccine? We'll hear from a doctor who has a few ideas coming up.
Welcome back to this Your Life, Your Health special. Compassion, understanding, and trusted information. Experts say those are the keys to helping someone make a decision about getting the vaccine.
Ladd Egan shares a story of a woman who was initially hesitant to get the shot and what changed her mind.
Okay, my friends, let's go wash our hands.
Alejandra Gonzalez is a mother of 3 and a teacher at the neighborhood house in Salt Lake City.
You want to play with magnets?
She says some in her family were steering her away from the COVID-19 vaccine and that she had concerns too until her work brought in a doctor to answer questions.
We asked tons of questions.
That meeting with the doctor helped change her mind.
That's when I started getting more confident on it.
There are many reasons why people may not be vaccinated yet.
Dr. Tamara Sheffield with Intermountain Healthcare says access to trusted information is vital for vaccine decision-making.
We need to find out where people are. And that comes by listening and understanding and asking questions.
Sheffield says barriers to getting the vaccine could be because of work schedules, technology, transportation, or communication, and that instead of telling someone what to do, we should listen first.
We need to remove our blind spots by understanding them and asking them questions and having empathy for their concerns.
I have some brothers and sisters too, and they're like, no, we're not into it. I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna take the risk. It's my decision, and here I am.
Gonzalez is getting her second shot this week.
I feel excellent. Like I get to protect more of my family.
She's also excited for the freedom that comes with being vaccinated.
I'm happy to have no more masks and see more smiles.
Gonzalez says she's now encouraging family and friends to get as much information as possible and to get vaccinated. Back to you.
Ladd, thank you. Still ahead, rusty social skills, how to approach post-pandemic etiquette. We'll speak with an expert coming up.
Welcome Welcome back to this Your Life, Your Health special. The pandemic has been a time of devastating loss for so many. It's challenged our resilience.
In turn, many found this time to be a period of growth or a time to reevaluate what's most important in life. Allie Davis explores what it'll take to remember these life lessons post-pandemic.
So when you do that, see how it's just kind of hitting right there?
When 13-year-old Lily LaFront noticed her dad baking cakes every Saturday, she did a double take.
Yeah, I was like, where did that come from? Like, I was so surprised.
Her hardworking entrepreneur of a father, John, didn't usually have time to be creative in the kitchen. But when the pandemic hit,
I now all of a sudden had time to develop that talent.
And with COVID restrictions in place, he needed a new outlet.
And it was really a huge challenge for me to unwind on a weekend because I couldn't go out and do things. And that was not great for me mentally. It's like the way I would de-stress.
Soon, Lily joined in.
She really just picked it up pretty dang quick.
The daddy-daughter bonding time also provided a chance to connect with others in a socially distant world.
It became an opportunity for us to also think outward and say, who can we deliver the cake to? Who has a birthday that's coming up?
Would you say the pandemic has been a period of growth for you?
Certainly personally, I've been challenged in ways I've never been challenged before, and I've had to rise above those. And it's also just taught us all to be super adaptable, and we're more resilient than we realized.
Intermountain Healthcare's Dr. Denise Lash says the pandemic's proven to be a time of resilience for many.
Where you're adapting positively to a negative event. So it does require that something difficult has happened.
This was especially true for Sally Carter of Sandy. When her husband's cancer relapsed during the pandemic, her family had to be extra cautious.
It's non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It's very aggressive.
She was determined to find ways to still personally progress.
It was a case of finding the joy in being at home.
Queremos hacer esta excursión, pero es carísima.
She decided to learn Spanish and has practiced every day since.
I stumbled on the Duolingo thing, and that's been a great little 15 minutes of me time. It's just finding the little moments of yourself.
She says it's challenged her mind, distracted her from worry, and helped her be present.
I've been really trying to focus on staying here and now and enjoying this moment today.
Her husband is now doing much better, and Sally says the lessons she's learned are invaluable.
There's still things you can find to make every day a surprise, every day have a highlight, and go to bed happy.
To retain these lessons as we slowly move into a post-pandemic world, Lash urges us to reflect.
First, write down what you've learned so that if you ever feel like you're slipping, you can return back to that list, and that can kind of serve as a roadmap.
Then make a plan.
To think of your time or plot out your time like a pie chart.
Prioritizing what's most important to you.
Perhaps they don't want to get back to how scheduled or overscheduled they were pre-pandemic.
And set reminders on your phone.
And it could even be like, don't forget to talk with somebody one day, make sure you reach out to at least one friend in the next week.
Now that life is quickly returning to normal for the LaFront family.
Saturdays are now backfilled with football, basketball, baseball, dance performances.
They're determined to still make time for cake and to share it too.
It'll always be something that I can look back on as a really positive thing that happened during that period of life.
As for Sally and her newly minted Spanish skills,
the joy in thinking that any minute now I'll be able to go out and use it is so exciting.
For Your Life, Your Health, Allie Davis, KSL 5 News.
Allie, thank you. Dr. Lash reminds us some people suffered greatly during the pandemic, and they may not be ready to move forward yet, and that's okay. This year has been different for everyone. As we start interacting with folks face-to-face, it might help to brush up on manners and social skills. Some say they're just feeling a little rusty.
Yeah, so here now is a little Emily Post, or as close as we're going to get to Emily Post, a little advice on shaking hands or not shaking hands, and a little poetry. Here's photojournalist Peter Rosen.
Alex.
I'm Alexander.
With an I.
Because I am my own kind of great.
A poet. Usually doesn't write alone. He writes like this.
I am the hero to my own life story. I've spent so much time alone.
But transitioning out of a pandemic, he finds it challenging to re-engage with the world.
I don't even know if my face works right.
Face to face.
And the only way I can really tell is by referencing against other people's faces.
When for more than a year, the faces have been masked.
We're social referencing organisms. That's what we do. We look at other people and is everybody smiling? Okay, we're all smiling. This is a good time, you know?
Re-entry is challenging, even for a post.
I think it's definitely a common experience. I'm feeling it.
A great-great-granddaughter of Emily Post.
I've noticed moments where my brain is catching in conversation and is like, whoa, do you normally say things like this to people? Is this like how normal interaction goes?
Perhaps it's a muscle.
I was like, oh my gosh, I have to talk to someone.
We need to exercise.
I think we do. We have to build up our social muscles again.
With Miriam Roddy, instigator of National Handshake Day, review handshake don'ts.
Don't do one of those arm grabs while you're shaking their hand, and don't do the cover up.
And handshake do's.
You basically just web to web, thumb joint, 1, 2, 3 pumps, let go.
And because it's a pandemic, how to not shake hands.
If I was approaching you in person, I'd probably say, handshake okay? Or is a handshake welcome?
Should we be shaking hands with business associates and new people that we come into contact with? That's a personal decision. But if you decide to be a handshaker, also decide to have some hand sanitizer with you.
Review tips.
We often say sports, entertainment.
For small talk.
Podcasts, books, movies, TV shows, all great things. Asking people questions about themselves is always a great conversation starter.
It's a good, strong handshake, looking people in the eye.
And get back to basics.
We need to start thanking people. We need to look people in the eye.
With etiquette consultant Ellen Reddick.
We're so used to bouncing back from someone. If we run into someone in the aisle in a grocery store, we recoil, and it's not a good look.
Learning to...
We want to care about people as much as we want them to care about us.
Having the patience and the compassion.
And we have to demonstrate that.
Learning to be a person again. 1 year of masks and hidden smiles, muted laughter, and time with mother. But now they say we can come out again and play. Boy, how I have forgotten. Well, come what may.
Peter Rosen, KSL 5 News.
Thank you, Peter. And when he is not in self-imposed quarantine, Alex with an I and his typewriter and his friends appear around town as the Poem Pros. Summer travel. How many Utahns plan on vacationing this summer and where? Next.
With most schools out and warmer weather in sight, many vaccinated Utah families are ready to travel this summer.
Local travel agencies tell KSL Hawaii, Florida, and Mexico are currently the most popular destinations for Utah travelers. A recent poll from Deloitte shows 36% of Americans are planning on a domestic flight in the next 3 months, 21% on an international flight, and 49% plan to stay in a hotel this summer. If you do choose to travel, infectious disease expert Dr. Brandon Webb urges families to vaccinate their 12 to 15-year-olds. If you're not vaccinated, minimize contact with others and mask up in poorly ventilated areas.
Thank you for joining us this evening for Your Life, Your Health special.
We'll be back here at 10 o'clock right after an all-new Dateline.